Hi everybody, my device is running out of battery, but I thought I'll give it a go anyway. I might just have to splice things together. So I apologize for the long overdue comparison of this particular high definition, newly remastered images by AGM here that is only available in German at the moment. And they have a larger size of this, but it's a fancy edition with gold gilding, I think. This is quite small, and I personally would have preferred an ordinary edition on a larger size so that we don't have to pay the price of a fancy gilded deck. In any case, I'm going to do a comparison of just the majors because otherwise it takes too much time, especially if we want to get into details. And for fun, I threw in this particular vintage deck by US Games, commonly known as White Box C, which I believe is published in the 80s. Now, of course, they're out of print, and some of them have this interesting green tint around it, which is actually a printing calibration issue, I believe. And so please note, though, that the image quality, the image itself that you found here, because of the printing inconsistency, because some of them look greener than others, especially around the border here, that just because I have this particular image for this particular edition doesn't necessarily mean that they're consistent across decks. So you can find yourself what is commonly known as quote-unquote the greeny Thoth, not the box, the green box, the current US Games green box, but greeny in terms of the green tint, which according to Tarot Garden Library, I will put the link below, is White Box C instead of the A or B, and it was published around about the mid-80s, I think. So again, the images you see here may be particular to just this deck, but I thought it'll be interesting to see anyway. And I bought this without the box, and I bought another one with the box, and none of them, if I do recall correctly, none of them exceed US $50. And so I can't tell you what you should pay for it, but I personally wouldn't pay any more than $50 or $60 for this one here. So let's begin. So this is from a deck that I've trimmed. This is from the green box US Games current green box, which is the largest size, and then I've completely trimmed it and I've etched it in a sort of copper bronzy thing here. So let's have a look at this one here. So this is this edition, this is that, and this one here is the greeny boxy, white boxy. So first let's have a look at this. As you can see, it is commonly known that the remastered edition come across a little bit more pastel-y, a little bit more gentle in color. And the US Games current one, this one I bought new maybe 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Most of my decks I bought 3 years ago, and so I'll put this together with this one here. So as you can see, the gentleness of coloring is more in line with the vintage 1980s one on the left there, also by US Games here. This one's printed in, where is it printed by? I'll let you have a look at that particulars yourself, in Belgium according to this table. This is in Belgium, and because this is AGM, this is also printed in Belgium, I believe. And I'm not quite sure where current US Games cards are being printed. It's very hard to, logistically, this is why I haven't shown you the comparison for the Rider-Waite Smith, because I was quite busy trying to figure out how the logistics of comparing 3 decks would be. I know it sounds easy enough, but my setup is really, really basic. So this is the Magician. So let's have a look at this one first. The right is the current remastered edition by AGM, and the left is the current US Games edition. And then we go to vintage 1980s, White Box C on the left. So the color is a bit more saturated with the middle. And if you look at the chest of the magician there, shading. So please be notified that this is a deck collecting video. You are not going to find anything deep and meaningful here. It's just talk about printing and reproduction quality and such, what some of you may consider to be very trivial, but some of us rather enjoy it just because. Side Priestess. So it feels a lot more crisp on the right, but the color is definitely more saturated on the left. And if the original painting looks like the right, then that's interesting to note. So let's zoom in on the flower there. So it's a lot softer, like if you see someone's brushstroke. Well, here is when you know when you play around with the picture editing function of your computer program, whatever the application is, and you can really crank up the, again, I don't know what the technical term is, and the images begin to split or begin to look like sketches rather than smooth lines. That's how it looks like in these two almost. You can see here. See how soft that is. And that's a little bit more grainy, I think might be the word. In that sense, it gives it a little bit more texture, but in reality, it looks like the paint is really smooth. I mean, if you think about, I don't know whether you should use oil painting, but so again, let me focus manually. So that vintage, this big one here, because it is made in line of the original white box A, the size of it is actually substantially bigger, and it makes sense. It makes sense for the image. So this is currently the largest available by US Games that I've trimmed off its edges, and you see there, have a look, there's just a fraction bigger here. And so let's see who white box A is published by Llewellyn. Interesting. So, and then white box B is Samuel Weiser. Okay, we carry on with the Empress. I haven't lit my candle because I don't want to burn any cards accidentally. Again, the current edition is in the middle and by US Games. Standard, this is the standard green box, the large, extra large, the largest size available in the middle. White box C by US Games, mid-80s on the left, and on the right is the AGM Remastered edition. So I'm going to get up close. Let's focus on the Empress chest with the lotus there. So very smooth here. I'm sorry, my finger's really dry because it's very cold here and my skin's cracking no matter how many times I moisturize. Again, let's look at this brushstroke here and here. You can see this. This look more textured and look a little bit more, how should I put it, shabby chic. But that is very smooth, and I'm assuming that is closest to the brushstroke there. Now, it is one thing to be closer to the original piece. It is another to say which one we found aesthetically more pleasing to the eyes. So you can argue that a bit of texturing like that actually makes it a little bit charming, but so now the Emperor is a bit more, you can look at this one here and look at that one there. So there is a general, interestingly, even with the Rider-Waite-Smith, not by US Games though, there is this sort of sense of cranking up the color, and maybe by trying to make the color a lot stronger, it gives the art a little bit, you know, that sense of a little bit more reddish hue. But if you look at his chest there, look at the squares around his chest, it just feels a lot more defined for some reason. The contrast between the red and the white on the AGM Remastered edition on the right there just seems a lot more, you know, there's a lot more contrast. I have to do it up close because from afar it's really hard to tell the difference. Okay, let me do up far here. There it is. And so interestingly, the US game Vintage on the left there, White Box C, is very similar to the Remastered edition. It's just not as high def, if that makes sense. So it's a bit more grainy. It arguably give it a bit of character, but this one definitely feels a little bit more crisp. Again, I can only speak of this particular deck from White Box C because White Box C with a green tint is known to be inconsistent across batches. Hierophant. You can pause there just to manage the length of this video. I'll do that. You can pause. And I'll let you focus on whichever part of the artwork you would like to focus to compare. I found it easier to not only see the overall feel, but then to focus very specifically on one part of the art, like for example the head of the Black King on the left, or whatever, you know, it's up to you. So let's do this. Sorry, my setup is really basic here, so let me just leave this for you to freeze if you want to, so you can make that comparison. And then we move to here. Focus again. Again, the middle is more saturated. It's just overall it's like that. And so you get a running theme here about how brushstrokes are a lot smoother on the high def remastered edition by AGM and OTO, the owner of the images. And two on the left are by US Games, one current in the middle, the largest edition, and left is a vintage from mid-80s. I've learned a lot from this card, a lot. I'm running out of battery. So I'm going to have to continue this in a separate segment and then I'll stitch them together.